The early days of a wipe and escape from Tarkov can be pretty chaotic, whether that be inside a raid or outside in your stash. There are going to be so many different weapons, items, and gear that you're going to be holding on to that it can be pretty hard to keep your stash organized and clean. That is why I'm making this video to help you newer and veteran players think about how to minimize that cluttered stash stress in the beginning of a wipe. So we can take your stash from looking like this to this, to strap in and let's organize that messy stash. Whether you have the standard edition or EOD edition of the game, it doesn't matter, because the stashes in the beginning of a wipe will inevitably get unorganized and cluttered if you don't keep up with it. The very first thing that you're absolutely going to need is a scav junk box. Scav junk box is bought from therapists at level 1 and it costs approximately 1.1 million rubles. Now I know what you're thinking, 1.1 million rubles in the beginning of a wipe is a lot of money. Yes, it is a ton of money up front, but the return on investment that you get with this case is priceless. In fact, I think you should really be getting 2, if not 3 of these cases, depending on how much of an experienced player you are. The reason for that is you can shove almost any item in the game in that junk box, and it will save you a massive amount of room. The more items you can hold on to and keep for quests, or when you unlock the flea market, the better. Selling items on the flea market will provide you a lot more money in the long run than selling to traders. So after getting the junk box and filling it up, by the time you get the flea market unlocked, you will be able to sell items in there and you will be making way more rubles than that measly 1.1 that you put in originally. This junk box saves you from having to worry about what items to sell and what items to keep once your stash is full, because you won't have this issue. The junk box is so big and it will save you way more room in your stash for things like gear and guns. The reason why I said you might want to get at least 2, if not 3 of these is because of that reason. You won't need to be wasting space with barter items when they can just be thrown in the junk box and sold later down the road. If you don't think it's worth it to buy 2 junk boxes, then hear me out, because later, if you want to build a scav case in your hideout, you will have to buy or turn in one of your scav junk boxes anyway. It's way more worth it to buy 2 scav junk boxes up front and get the use out of them rather than buy one later just to construct the scav case in the hideout. The reason why I say you might want to keep 3 is if you're an experienced player and you know what's going to be worth more money later on in the wipe, and it's a good thing to have an extra scav case just to keep things that are going to be worth more money in the future, like water filters and fuel and so on. Okay, now that we talked about how important a scav junk box is, let's talk about storing items that can't go in it. Things like ammo, magazines, meds, weapon parts, keys, and so on. The next best thing for early wipe is to keep and gather rigs that hold more than the space they take up. For example, take a look at these 2 rigs, which are pretty common rigs to find early in the wipe. Each rig takes up 12 squares or tiles in the stash, as they are a 4x3. But if you open them up, they each hold 16 and 20 squares. And if you do the math, that means that these 2 rigs can save you 4 to 8 tile spaces in your stash. It might not seem like it's that much of a big deal, but trust me, early wipe, every spot in your stash counts, especially if you're running a standard account. These backpacks and rigs will be your temporary ammo and mag cases. So, use these rigs and backpacks to store your loose ammo, magazine, keys, and weapon parts that can't go into a scav junk box to save room. One thing that I do recommend as a little extra tip is to try and organize the rigs with what you're putting in it. For example, put mags all in the same rig, ammo in another rig, and so on. This way, it helps you a little further in keeping organized so you aren't clicking through all your rigs trying to find one item that you're looking for. Now when it comes to stashing guns and gear, it is important to try and put them in backpacks if you can. Armor is a little bit more challenging because it takes up a lot of space and it can't easily be stored. So keeping bigger backpacks like a pilgrim and trizips to hold maybe 2 pieces of armor is about the best that you can do. But when it comes to guns, there is a little more that can be done in order to preserve some space. You can remove the pistol grips and mags from the weapons, which will make your gun go from a 2-tile high gun into a 1-tile high gun, essentially saving you half the space it normally would have taken you. So be sure that if you are running out of room, to check and see if you can remove some of the grips and mags to turn the gun into a 1x5 or whatever it is to save the space. Be careful when you're doing this though, because you don't want to accidentally sell the grips, which you might not be able to actually buy until later in the wipe. To store the grips into a rig or backpack, that way you don't accidentally sell them, which will make the gun useless. If you implement those strategies, it should hold you until you get the flea market unlocked. Once you get the flea market unlocked, that is where the real fun begins. After selling everything you hoarded in your junk box, you should be sitting on a pretty good amount of rubles. I recommend that the next step that you need to take is to try to get your traders to level 2, specifically Jaeger. If you do that, you can get a barter trade with him to get the whole of the Nick case, which allows you to store food. Storing food is huge early wipe because you're always going to need it for doing raids because your metabolism levels will be so low. So it's definitely worth spending the money on the flea to get the items to grab this case. Honestly, this barter trade isn't too bad, and you could probably get it done just by going to Goshen on interchange for a few scav raids and looting the food. But if you got the money, go ahead and get this case. The next case that you're going to want to get for barter trades is the ammo box from level 1 mechanic. The The ammo box does like the name implies and stores ammunition. Having this will save you a ton of room and be way more efficient than keeping your ammo in multiple rigs. You can save a ton of room because this case is only a 2x2 and it holds a ton of ammo. Don't be shy about doing this trade for this case and get as many as you think you're going to need. Now that you've done some trades to store your ammo and your food, the next step is to get the lavatory to level 2. Doing this will allow you to craft magazine and grenade cases. Yes, it will be expensive early wipe as all barter items and hideout items are pretty expensive, but like I said with the scab junk box, the return on investment is worth it. And once you get this done, you won't need rigs to store your items. Most of them will have a home to go to and you will be much more organized. That only leaves a few items that can't be stored in cases that I mentioned before, those being keys, medical supplies, guns and attachments, and gear. In my opinion, these cases will come later in a wipe from doing quests, but I don't typically do trades to unlock. Things like dock cases and medical cases you receive from quests that you get fairly early on, and that is how I get them to use them. The same goes for thick cases and weapon cases. Those type of cases are more geared for late game and higher levels, so I'm not including them in this video because they're probably going to get a video of their own, as there's more detail to go with them. But as far as early wipe goes, if you implement these tips that I just gave you, then you will be well on your way to a clean and organized stash, and you won't have to worry about spending so much time in it and keep spending more time doing raids. Trust me, you and your friends will thank me later when you aren't dicking around trying to find a certain mag or ammo that you need to go into a raid. You will be able to find what you're looking for within seconds and get right into the next raid without having to waste any time. So thank you all for watching. I hope I was able to help minimize the stress of early wipe stash management for a lot of you newer players, and maybe give some of you veteran players some ideas as well. Don't forget to leave a like if this video has helped you out or if you enjoyed it, and subscribe and leave a comment down below about how you like to manage your stash if you think you have a better way of doing it. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.